Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Work Trends with Megan M. Biro. Whether you're here to network, learn, or share, we want you to have fun. During this live broadcast and Twitter chat, we'll discuss the future of work with smart and entertaining guests who value today's business and its impact on the world of work for the future. Stay tuned, because we start in 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another informative Talent Culture Work Trends podcast and Twitter chat. There we have it. This is our very first show today with the new hashtag. So I hope you guys are ready to rock and roll with me right now. I want to give a special thank you to all our friends and sponsors. You know, today's a really cool day, not only just because it's the start of my new podcast and all that hoopla, and I hope you guys like my little intro. I thought you guys might get a chuckle out of that one. But, you know, today I have with me a good friend and colleague of mine, so I'm excited that it was exactly probably 1 year ago today, we were just talking in the green room about it, that he was on our show, and he is back. And today... and I'm going to tell you who that is if you have yet to know who this is, our surprise guest today. But, you know, today we're going to be talking about how to overcome the symptoms of destructive management and building an optimistic workplace. Sounds so simple, I realize, but, you know, this problem has been percolating in organizations for some time, as you know. Anyone who follows what I've been up to, either podcasting, tweeting, or blogging, knows that I care a whole heck of a lot about leadership and culture. And yes, it sounds warm and fuzzy, and it is. And it's also a serious topic because it actually adversely affects a lot of people right now. A lot of this has become commonplace, unfortunately. And I think too little is being done about it. So today's guest, Sean Murphy, is with us. And he's going to be discussing his new book, The Optimistic Workplace. Really excited. He is the CEO and founder of the consultancy Switch and Shift. He's an author. He's a keynote speaker. And his debut book is what we're kind of focusing on right now, called, again, The Optimistic Workplace. And it's actually available if you guys want to get out there and get it. We'll be tweeting with you today and giving you more information around it. If you want to connect with Sean right now on Twitter, he's at @TheSeanMurphy. And I hope you'll stop by and read his weekly Inc. column, Positive Business. So without further ado, say hello, Sean.
Well, hello, and I like, the guy's got a good radio voice for the intro.
Doesn't he?
It's a nice, yeah, it's packaged well. Nicely done.
He's pretty talented, I tell you. Yeah, we had a lot of fun making that. So thanks. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. So you actually knew the talent, because sometimes we just it's an internet transaction and never actually see the person, but you actually know the person. That's cool.
No, there's no, in internet, that's what we make of it, right? I got to know him through the process, actually, and it's hysterical.
Cool.
I had more fun, and, I'm really excited to do more podcasting and to use more tools, whether it's audio or video as we go forward. It's so much more rich of an experience now, especially, Sean, you're probably one of my favorite people to catch up with, and you and I how many years do you and I go back? You were probably, along with Ted Koine, one of my very first social media, air quote, friends. How many years do we go back? 6 years?
I'm thinking it's probably about 6 years now.
Yeah.
I
remember. You remember those days? So much has changed.
Yeah. It's all good stuff though, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. And it's been a lot of learning, a lot of growing, and a lot of innovation around business and social media and content. So, speaking of content, you're pretty prolific on that angle. Tell us just a little bit more about the Optimistic Workplace and why, you're kind of excited and you feel like it's a calling right now to talk more about this topic.
Well, I think with the community that the T-Chat Work Trends community, it's no secret to them that the workplace has some pretty, noticeable black eyes, whether it be the horrendous engagement problems that we have in the workplace, or if it's the lack of trust that employees have in big business and in senior leadership, to even believing that managers don't have meaning the employee's best interest in mind. So I had my own experience where I became disillusioned working for the quote-unquote man, and part of the reason that it ended so poorly for me was the similar reasons that so many employees are experiencing today. The workplace just isn't a good place to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And so I felt like we've got to do something. And I have a really big soft spot for the middle layer of the organization because that's where all the stuff gets done. They get pressure from employees, they get pressure from above. And how can I help them create a positive work environment, or what I call an optimistic work environment? So that really became a rallying cry to figure out what are these organizations out there that are doing it right? What are they doing, and then how can I spread that message? So that became the genesis of the Optimistic Workplace.
When did that happen for you? Like, when was that period in your life and career where you became kind of disillusioned? Give us kind of a time frame on it.
Yeah, so this was about 9 years ago. I was working
it was a while ago.
Yeah. I was working in HR, and I had the responsibility of managing our tuition reimbursement program. And I, along with the VP of HR, decided that nobody was using it, so let's revamp the program. And I went through my recommendations, one of which was let's pay for employees guitar lessons. If that brings them greater fulfillment and helps them be an overall happier person, we as an organization are going to benefit from that. And that didn't go over so well. And I decided,
like, what? They have individual personalities. Each person is unique and has different interests, right?
Imagine that this person in front of me is not just an employee but a human being. Whoa.
Right. And then you just felt like, you know what? There's something bigger and better out there. And it probably bubbled over time like it does for so many people, Yeah,
I think a lot of people who take to pen and paper, the proverbial pen and paper, is this, they think about these ideas for a long time. And so this had been percolating for quite a while, and it finally percolated enough to say, okay, let's write about this.
Well, we're glad it did, and I know, knowing you as long as I have, I know you're really passionate about this subject, and it's genuine. I think it's a popular subject still. And it's popular for,
thank goodness.
I think thank goodness. I was just going to say for some really good reasons, because it's real, right?
Yeah.
So, it's happening. It continues to happen, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we can get from A to B at this point. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, talk to me about your experience with some of the deeper effects of destructive management, other than kind of the obvious discontent, right?
Yeah.
All the stuff that we may already be blogging about or tweeting about. What in your experience are some of these symptoms? How do people who maybe are in a destructive environment or a culture, how do we know that that's happening?
Well, so there are 6 symptoms that I write about in the book, The Optimistic Workplace, that I don't know that we have time to go into all 6, so I'll follow your lead in terms of how far you want me to go. But
sure.
when we think about destructive management, I think the first thing that we and I say the collective we is those who are in a formal leadership role, is most leaders are on this hamster wheel of meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting, and they don't have the time. Yeah, and they don't have the time or they're not taking the time, I think I should say more clearly, they're not taking the time to connect with their employees. And what they don't realize is that they're blind to the impact that they're having. And the impact they're having is not very positive. It's a catch me if you can type of relationship. And employees are left wondering, what kind of boss do I have? Does he or she really care about me? So the first symptom of destructive management is this, what I call blind impact, that they're just not aware of how their leadership or lack of leadership or their distractedness is affecting the team's performance, but most importantly, well, not most importantly, but also importantly, the work environment.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of blind impact. Two really interesting words to put together, actually, you know?
Well,
and
there was a little bit of thought to it.
And here's the question, though. When we
Here's
talk
that?
about culture, when I talk about culture, I'm always putting it in context of size of organization, maybe vertical that they're playing in. How do you look at this? Could this be happening for a 10-person company as well as a 10,000-employee organization?
Absolutely.
Are there differences there?
Well, sure, there are differences. We do see the bigger an organization gets, the more bureaucratic it becomes, the more siloed it becomes, the more fractured it becomes. Yeah. It's just
it only becomes worse, right?
It does. It does. At least if there's not a real intentioned set of actions that senior leaders, middle management, and employees take to really keep an eye on the organization. If you look at Zappos, for example, I'm on the fence with holacracy, but what Tony Hsieh's doing is he's iterating the organization, and it's a large organization, and it's a painful process.
Right.
It's not for those who don't have.
No.
You have to have a steel stomach to do this kind of work sometimes. But,
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. No, shout-outs to anyone who's doing this tough work, by the way, because you have to do a lot of looking in the mirror, you have to do a lot of reality checks, and you have to be able to deal with criticism along the way, and that's just part of the feedback loop, right?
Absolutely. One of the things to that point that what we're learning from research from the Hay Group and Gallup is that, ironically, they've both come to the same number through different paths. 70% of the work experience is based on the relationship that employees have with their managers. 70%, that's a huge percentage. And if we have leaders who are unaware of how their style impacts people, you're going to have a work environment, whether it be the culture or the climate, that really is not a positive place for people to be. It's kind of like, I'm not a parent, I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephews, and I know well enough that parenting takes a very conscious effort. It takes a very conscious effort to create a positive, optimistic workplace.
Yeah. Tell us just briefly about the other 5. We covered blind impact. Tell us about the rest of the symptoms.
Yeah, so the other symptoms are antisocial leadership, which it's not just about getting out there and management by walking around. It's also understanding the importance that connection plays in teams, that connection plays in organizations. Another one is chronic change resistance, and this is from the manager's perspective, not so much from the employee perspective. And the more we resist change, the more the realities of business become more difficult, not only for the leader but also for their employees. Probably my favorite is profit myopia, and what I learned in doing the research for this book and talking with well over 100 employees in different organizations across the U.S. is that profit wasn't the sole driver for the business success. It's an ultimate outcome, but when we focus on profit and confuse it for a purpose, it signals some messages to employees that alienate. And we see things like CEOs who underperform continue to get million-dollar bonuses while employees get a modest 2% pay increase, right? So this profit myopia manifests in decisions and policies that don't support a positive, optimistic workplace. Constipated inspiration is another symptom, and that's really...
It's reminding me a lot of those Super Bowl ads that we saw past weekend.
In what way? I didn't get to see the Super Bowl this year.
There was plenty of them. There was a lot of irritable bowel and reference to other bodily functions. Apparently, those went over pretty well with the public. So look at you. You're timely.
Hey,
so trendy,
maybe
Sean.
we can have... there we go. We can get work trends trending with constipated inspiration.
You never know. It's possible.
Yeah, there you go. And the last one is silo syndrome, which basically people getting stuck with this perspective of their world only and not how external forces influence a business or a team.
I love those. I love all of those symptoms. I think to me probably the most interesting one is the profit myopia as well, because I think we see this playing out, and I'm going to go there with you. I know you're not scared to talk about the generations in the workplace, Sean. We're going to talk millennials a little bit. We're going to talk Gen Z, but when we look at, say, I'm going to take a leap and say, last night's win for Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire. If we look at politics as well, if we talk about culture, there's this shift towards purpose, and I do think it's on trend. And I think I'm grateful for it, and I'm sure a lot of other employees from various generations. Really, I don't think it's just one generation that's driving that conversation, but I do think that Gen Z and millennials are certainly. They're talking about it.
Well, grateful. I'm grateful, as I know you are, for what the Gen Y generation is bringing to the table, and that is this conversation on purpose. You and I think we're both the same generation of, purpose has always been something that's important to us, but we just never really got it from work. And now Gen Y saying, no, I want to work for an organization that does good work in the communities where it serves. It helps employees have more fulfilling lives. And we don't want to spend all of our time working. And I think purpose-oriented organizations get that there is a much more delicate dance between employee and manager, employee and organization around purpose.
So what are some ways employees can bring up this need for what you call an optimistic workplace when it's maybe not such a great place to work? What can people do right now that feel like, frankly, their culture sucks and they feel kind of locked in by their paycheck and all of that garbage and baggage that goes along with, not being happy with the culture, not being happy for a variety of reasons, but a lot of it, some of that, as I pointed out in my Forbes post this week, does point to leadership.
Yep. I love this question because underlying this question is that it's not just a manager's responsibility to shift the culture, to shift the climate. It's also employees who have a responsibility for this. And I think the first step is the hardest step, and that is to bring to the leader's attention that there's a problem. And I was talking with some people yesterday about this, and I think the first thing that an employee can do is own it for themselves, saying, I want something more, and I think we have it here, but we're missing some things. And be willing, and then the employee needs to be willing to be part of the solution. It can't just, bitch and drop. Right? It's like, no, okay.
Right.
Here's the problem. Here's how here's how I'm experiencing it. Can we do something about this? And I think that's a very big step. But if an employee really wants to help make a change, they have to be willing to be bold and ask those questions.
Well, be bold and not be passive-aggressive in their approach, because my experience with employees who are not happy, it tends to be this thing that simmers somewhere inside of you, And now that we have all these tools called social media, what we see is a lot of passive aggression or just outright aggressive behavior sometimes from people who just, they're not happy, right? But bitching and moaning about it doesn't help, to your point. No. So I wish more people, and I hope they're listening to this today, I hope they're listening to the idea that you can do something about it. You don't have to feel trapped. And, communication and having a plan around that is really, I think, so often overlooked. And just getting honest with your manager and just getting honest with yourself, saying, I'm not happy, rather than stay in a victim place and complain about it and, yada, yada, yada. There's things that you can do, and I think, I think that's just huge. And I think it remains to be something that, a lot of people want to unlock.
Yeah. Amen, sister. I'm right there with you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. To remain a victim or to passively complain about it around the proverbial water cooler, all it does is just make things worse. And I think as people are listening to this, employees, formal leaders, informal leaders, you now have been presented with a choice, and that choice is, do you let things stay the way they are if they're not satisfying, or do you take action to be able to figure out how do you improve? And I pivot a little bit away from the popular language to say change the culture. Culture change is really, really difficult.
It really is.
And it's important, but it's years in the making. And where a leader can have the greatest influence is shifting the climate. And climate is what it feels like to work somewhere. Mm-hmm. You can shift the climate in a direction towards the culture change that's desired, but it's not
climate. I like it, Sean. It's a unique angle, and it sounds like it takes less time maybe to change climate, is what you're saying.
It takes less time, and there's more in that the manager has control over. So, for example, if I wanted to create an optimistic workplace, part of what I can do as a leader is I can make things much clearer for my team. Right? Here are our goals. Here are your goals. Or better yet, let's figure out what our goals need to be in order for this team to be successful, in order for you to be successful. That doesn't take HR to come in and say you need to do this. It doesn't take senior managers to come in and say you need to do this. It's a choice that a leader can take to make sure clarity in why people are doing what they're doing is part of the work experience.
So tell me, what are the best traits a manager can have to infuse this kind of optimism that you're talking about on a more regular and daily basis into this? Well, now I'm a little worried to say the word culture with you, okay?
No,
you went
okay.
there with
it's okay.
But you know what I'm saying.
I'm with you.
All right.
Yeah. So I hear two questions in there. One is traits, and the other is what can a leader do to create this optimistic work environment. And I'll start with the skills. And there are two categories of skills that I write about for a leader to be able to shift the workplace environment to be optimistic. And those two categories are know yourself skills and do good for other skills. I think what's important, and we don't hear it enough, is that we hear let's say it this way, we hear in the conversation around engagement that, you got to help your employees be more engaged. Well, what about the leader? The leader also needs to be engaged. And if he or she isn't feeling that way, then it's going to be really mightily difficult for him or her to help her employees be engaged. So the skills for know yourself, reflection, and having a support network being able to build a support network, those are skills that are really essential for leaders to be able to leverage on a regular basis to create optimism. Reflection is important because it forces you to stop and think about what's going on in the environment, how is my team doing. we have to get off the hamster wheel at some point to be able to.
And
to
how
do that.
often? How often do you think either, and I'm going to use this in two directions, if you're a leader or you're an employee, how often do you think reflection needs to happen, in your opinion?
I think ideally
24/7?
Well, yeah, that would be ideal, but probably not practical.
Ideal.
Yeah,
right.
I would
not
say
at all realistic.
I think a leader should really spend, at least a good half hour a week on her own, thinking about how things are going, but also reflecting with employees in their one-on-ones. And I'm a big fan of one-on-ones, and not just one-on-ones and like, tell me what you're doing and how are things going. Yeah. There are other ways to have that conversation. But reflection, if you could steal away 30 minutes a week, that would be great. And
awesome. I may have to take some of this advice. Why not? We could all use a little more downtime at this point with how busy everybody is, It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And it sets the tone for the team. And there's a lot that comes, I spend about an hour a week doing this. But it helps me pay attention and see signs of where things might be going astray or where things are going really well.
Yeah.
And it really does.
Do you do this like in your home office or at the gym, or like what is your place where you go for that? Is there one place? Do you kind of mix it up all the time? I know you because I've known you long enough to know that you're really disciplined person, right? So I bet you have some sort of a routine baked in around this. That's why I'm asking.
You're right, I do. So I do it in a couple ways. If I'm traveling, the great place to do it is on the airplane, right? There's nothing better than forced
I love
disconnectedness. But in the car, I'll be thinking on things. You're right. And then also I have a meditation practice, and so, I'm a workaholic, admittedly, and meditation is a way for me to kind of think about things at a bigger picture level.
Well, I have to tell you, I've gotten into meditation, I would say in the last 6 months, again, through yoga. I'm really becoming really active in the yoga community here in Cambridge, Mass., and it's been amazing. I was into Pilates and yoga years back. As some of you may know, I was once upon a time going to be a professional dancer. So I spent a lot of my time as a kid and a teenager, performing basically, and part of that was the early yoga. And I tell you, getting back into it now, Sean, it's amazing what it can do for you just to give yourself that time,
Well, and I think that's the point, is giving yourself the time. It's really easy to give away our time and then be left with nothing for ourselves.
Super. And, I think many of us, including myself, I've fallen into that trap. I fell into that trap years back, and it just became a vicious cycle. And it's so, it's refreshing to just hear from you and hear about what you can do to sort of get out of that. So tell me, we have we've got the 90-second bell going on. Can you believe it? Time flew today. So
it always does when we get a chance.
Yeah. Tell us how your work over at Switch and Shift prepared you for this book and what's next really quickly, and then we'll hop on over to the Twitter chat.
Great. So Switch and Shift is really focused on the human side of business and exploring what that means and how do we help organizations adopt their practices and even those business models. So this is really just an extension of more human-centered business practices from a leadership perspective. So that exploration really helped position me for this. And what's next is really starting to think about book number 2. I'm not quite ready to say what it is because I haven't finalized it yet. But book 2 will commence this spring.
Well, that's super exciting, and I can't tell you how happy I am to have you here today with us. And let's hop on over and do some more connecting and talking about this subject. And it's timely.
Great.
And it's important. And Sean, thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on the show again, Megan. I'm grateful.
Thanks. All right. See ya.